In the dusty streets of Burkina Faso, where the scorching sun beats down mercilessly on weathered faces and cracked earth, an ordinary man stood behind a simple wooden cart selling fresh sugarcane juice. His weathered hands worked the manual, press with practiced efficiency, extracting the sweet nectar that provided momentary relief to weary travelers and local residents alike. The handmade sign above his cart read in faded letters, "Pure Juice, Service from the Heart." This man, whose name was Mujib, had no idea that his small act of kindness would set in motion a chain of events that would expose one of the most heinous criminal networks operating in West Africa. He was simply a hard-working vendor trying to make an honest living, serving his community one glass at a time. But Ibrahim Tarore, the young military leader who had recently assumed leadership of Burkina Faso, saw something different in this humble juice seller. Ibrahim understood that true intelligence often came not from sophisticated surveillance equipment or high-tech operations, but from ordinary people who kept their eyes open and their hearts connected to their community. The clock struck 3:01 p.m. on that fateful afternoon when the blazing sun began to moderate its intensity and the city's noise seemed to carry a hint of exhaustion. The old wooden canopy over the sugarcane juice stall swayed gently in the breeze, its handmade board creaking softly. A young man with wheat-colored skin, dressed in simple civilian clothes with a black headscarf wrapped around his head, approached the stall with measured steps. His face was partially hidden by a beard, and his eyes were deep and peaceful, yet concealing an inner steel that spoke of someone accustomed to making difficult decisions. This was Ibrahim Tarore, the current president of Burkina Faso, but today there was no security detail, no protocol. He moved toward that small stall like any ordinary citizen seeking refreshment. The juice vendor was approximately 55 years old, wearing a white kurta, holding a glass in his hand as he fed the last pieces of sugarcane into his machine. Beads of sweat glistened on his forehead from the heat and exertion, but as soon as his gaze fell upon this stranger, he paused for a moment. There was a spark of recognition in his eyes, as if a face from years past was slowly emerging from the mist of memory. "2 glasses of cold juice, but don't make it too sweet," Ibrahim said casually. The juice vendor smiled warmly. He carefully washed the glasses, turned the machine twice, and then extracted the juice, placing 1 glass before his customer without asking for payment. "You gave the first glass without charge, too. Do you remember?" Ibrahim's voice was gentle, but his eyes remained alert and observant. "I recognized you," the juice vendor said softly. "I remember that day when you came exhausted. You hadn't eaten for 2 days, yet you wore a uniform, though your shoes were worn out. I thought to myself, he has the uniform, but perhaps his circumstances aren't matching the uniform." A slight moisture appeared in Ibrahim's eyes. "Back then, maybe I didn't believe myself that I would one day become president." The juice vendor completed the sentence and offered the second glass. Both sat in silence for a few moments, as if time's wheel had stopped turning. Around them was the noise of traffic and people coming and going, but it was as if time had frozen at that small stall. "You're still here in the same place," Ibrahim said as he set down his glass. The vendor paused, then spoke in a somewhat lower voice. "If I leave this place, I'll also lose those eyes that observe everyone who comes and goes." He stopped for a moment, then continued in an even quieter voice. "Mr. President, for the past few days, strange people have been coming here at night. They bring photographs of young people with them, smiles on their faces, but poison in their words." Ibrahim was startled. "What did you say? Photographs of young people?" "Yes. They ask questions. They inquire about names. Some I've actually seen before. The next day, the same photograph appears in missing person reports. I thought I should tell you. When you last came, you were a soldier. Now you're president, but you haven't stopped being a soldier." Ibrahim slowly stood up and placed his hand on the vendor's shoulder. You recognized me at the right time and told me at the right time. What you've shared could prevent a major conspiracy. A conspiracy? Ibrahim paused, his expression growing grave. Yes. Perhaps now it's not just sugarcane juice being extracted. Someone has learned to squeeze human blood as well, and now we must shut off that tap. Saying this, he stepped back. Quietly, but before leaving, he turned around. I'll come back tomorrow night. Be ready here. The juice vendor nodded slowly. His face showed confidence, and his eyes held light. A revolution had begun again with 2 glasses of juice. The president, now functioning as an undercover intelligence operative, had partially covered his face with a black shawl and held a small recorder in his hand, ready to capture every sound that might provide crucial evidence. The juice vendor, who usually packed up his stall by this time, remained seated late into the evening. His hands trembled slightly, but his face remained completely calm. He had placed a small lantern in front of his stall so that whoever came would find everything appearing normal, but his eyes remained constantly fixed on that bend in the road from where the suspicious car came every night. It was approaching 10:30 p.m. when a black car slowly approached the stall and stopped. 2 men got out of the car. Both wore expensive, branded clothing. Their faces were unfamiliar, but their eyes held that same spreading poison that Ibrahim had learned to recognize. One of them took out his mobile phone, the other his wallet. Then both approached the juice vendor. "Give us 2 glasses," one said in a somewhat commanding tone. The juice vendor smiled innocently and moved toward his machine, but he glanced once at Ibrahim, hidden behind the stall, who was now listening to every word with complete attention. "We've heard many boys come to your place from the surrounding neighborhoods," the second man casually remarked. "Yes, sir, everyone comes. School and madrasa children, too. Everyone likes sugarcane juice." The juice vendor's voice sounded like any ordinary shopkeeper's, but his heartbeat was rapid. There was a boy. His name was maybe Moro or Moga, something like that. Tall and thin with a mole on his forehead. Have you ever seen him? One showed a photograph from his mobile phone. The juice vendor glanced briefly at the photo and said, "Maybe he's come here. Many come. I don't remember everyone. Develop the habit of remembering, old man. Next time we want answers." Saying this, one pulled out a note from his pocket and placed it next to the juice glass. Then both turned toward their car. At that moment, Ibrahim turned off his recorder and quietly sent a signal to his team via mobile phone. The car's number, faces, voices, everything had been secured. The car had departed. The juice vendor came to the back of his stall with tired steps. Ibrahim was now standing, his eyes sharp, his face stern. "These are the same people you told me about. Yes, they've come several times, each time a new name, a new photograph, but the same attitude, like hunters who change the size of their prey, not their intentions." Ibrahim picked up his mobile phone, looked at the photograph again, and took a deep breath. Starting tomorrow morning, this will become a nationwide campaign. Those who trade in children are now approaching their end, the juice vendor said softly. "You're not alone, Ibrahim. I'm with you." That night, both stood in the shadows of the enemy, but the light of their intentions was so bright that the darkness began to scream. 3 days later, raindrops were lightly touching the ground. Water flowed from the gutters along the roadside, and the atmosphere had grown cooler. The lights of the city seemed somewhat dimmed in that moisture-laden environment. Ibrahim Tarore was present at his intelligence headquarters, a simple room with maps of the country on the walls, some photographs, and scattered files everywhere. In front of him was a board with photographs of those suspicious individuals against whom evidence had been collected. Suddenly, the door opened. An intelligence officer entered, his breath coming in short gasps. "Mr. President, we've found a boy who has seen everything." Ibrahim immediately turned around. "Where is he?" "Downstairs in security, injured but conscious." A few moments later, the boy was brought forward. perhaps 16 to 17 years old, his face pale, lips blue, clothes torn, and wound marks on his arm. He looked like someone who had escaped from captivity, as if he had come saving his life from some closed cage. "What's your name?" Ibrahim asked gently. "Find Amina, look for Amina," the boy gasped. She was with me. We were given false promises of work. All of us were—" Ibrahim extended a glass of water toward him. "Speak slowly. You're safe. Tell us everything." The boy's breathing was broken, but his eyes held images of brutality. "They took us to an NGO office. They said they would send us to Europe. Good jobs, big salaries, even showed us passports. But as soon as night fell, they blindfolded us. When we opened our eyes next, we were in a warehouse." "How many children were with you?" "Maybe 25, all from different cities, all young. Some had even agreed happily, but later they started beating us. Whoever made noise, they took him to the back, and he never returned." Ibrahim took a deep breath, as if swallowing poison. "How did you escape?" The boy looked with a slight smile in his sorrowful eyes. "There was one man, maybe he wasn't one of them either. He loosened my rope under the pretext of giving me water at night. I ran away. I hid in the forest for 2 days. Then a bus driver helped me, and I reached here." Ibrahim immediately signaled an officer. "Provide medical help for him and keep him under protection." Then he approached the boy. "You've shown courage. Now we will stop all of this. Whatever you remember, places, signs, people, give us everything." The boy nodded slowly. "Before I die, I want all of them to be saved. Amina, all of them." Ibrahim grasped his hand and said, "No, no one will die. The war has begun now." At that moment, a seemingly ordinary boy had handed over the thread with which Ibrahim was about to pull an entire web of conspiracy. Away from the city's hustle and bustle stood a clean, impressive building with shining letters on its door, reading Future. Bridges, International Youth Development NGO. In appearance, this building looked like an educational institution or private hospital. It had white and blue polished glass doors and smiling girls at the reception inside. But Ibrahim knew that behind this beautiful facade lay blood and deception. It was afternoon. The sun was shining with its full glory. Ibrahim, along with the juice vendor, had adopted the disguise of ordinary citizens. Old jeans, shalwar kameez, and a small bag hanging around the neck. Both rode a motorcycle toward that NGO office. Throughout the journey, the juice vendor remained silent, but his eyes were carefully examining every detail. "I've seen people sitting outside their office many times, as if they're searching for prey." Ibrahim nodded. "Prey is only that which is unaware. Now we won't let them remain unaware." Upon entering the office, a beautiful girl stopped them. "Yes, welcome to Future Bridges. How can we help you?" Ibrahim said in a gentle manner. "My younger brother needs some job opportunity abroad. Someone told us that you people help." The girl smiled, as if she heard this sentence daily. "Yes, absolutely. We guide young people for excellent jobs. Do you have his ID or photograph?" The juice vendor quickly said, "We have everything, but one question. Do you really send people abroad, the girl laughed. "Sir, in the past 2 years, we've sent more than 500 young people to UAE, France, and Germany. We have our own referral team, sponsors." Then she took out a catalog showing smiling faces of young people, along with success stories written under fake names and country identifications. Ibrahim carefully looked at one photograph. That face was familiar. It was the same boy he had rescued and brought back. Now under that photograph was written Marsal Ahmed, Germany. Ibrahim's heart forgot to beat for a moment. That photograph was fake. If we submit the file tomorrow, how long will the process take? the juice vendor asked with feigned interest. Not much. Visa will be ready in 2 days. We arrange everything. Even if there's no passport, our connections come in handy. Ibrahim kept his gaze fixed for a few moments, then said quietly, "Can we do a small video interview to show to the boys in our village?" The girl hesitated. "Sir, that's not officially allowed. Besides, our work is internal support, not external." Ibrahim mentally recorded this sentence. This was the internal support that didn't send children abroad, but buried them. They had quietly recorded all the files, fake photographs, and catalogs on their mobile phones. Now, this NGO could no longer hide behind its facade. The juice vendor said softly, "Mr. President, a trap is best laid where the prey comes with confidence. These people are wearing the mask of truth, but we've seen their faces." Ibrahim smiled and replied, "From tomorrow, the hunter will become the hunted." The market's bustle was at its peak. The sun's intense heat was pouring overhead, but activity continued in the city's streets and alleys. Ibrahim Tarore wore white shalwar kameez with a traditional cap on his head and dark glasses over his eyes. His face looked like any ordinary sugarcane juice vendor. He was standing at his temporary cart set up in the middle of the market, extracting sugarcane juice, but his eyes were fixed on 2 suspicious individuals standing in the square. This place had been chosen for a specific reason. He had received intelligence that an Israeli network dealt in drugs and weapons here, and one of their operatives, disguised as a butcher, sat here daily. Absorbed in sugarcane juice extraction, Ibrahim was conducting complete surveillance from within. Drenched in sweat, pressing sugarcane with one hand, writing accounts of previous customers with the other, and simultaneously listening to voices and commands through a micro-device hidden in his ear. At that moment, a young boy came, running, out of breath. "Uncle, make 2 glasses." Ibrahim smiled and nodded, and began filling glasses very carefully. But his eyes were now on the black-tinted car approaching from behind the butcher's shop. The car stopped. 2 men got out and went straight to sit near the butcher. Their movements weren't like ordinary buyers, and for their conversation, the butcher immediately drew a curtain. This was a signal for Ibrahim. He went to the back, wiping his hands as if going to drink water. But in reality, he was sending a direct signal to the nearby African military intelligence unit through his mobile hotspot. Everything was happening very carefully. No one could guess his intentions. Within moments, military vehicles became visible from a corner of the market. The butcher panicked. The people inside got up in haste, but Ibrahim was already there. He pulled out the gun hidden under his cart and lunged toward the butcher. "Don't move." His thunderous voice echoed throughout the market. The butcher had a knife in his hand, but he knew that the person standing before him was no ordinary sugarcane juice vendor. For a moment he hesitated, and at that instant, Ibrahim struck his shoulder with the gun's butt. He staggered and fell to the ground. Military soldiers had arrived from behind. The other suspicious individuals tried to flee but were surrounded. Ibrahim commanded, "Everyone down!" The market seemed to have stopped. People watched with amazed eyes as the sugarcane juice vendor revealed himself as a dangerous intelligence operative. The truth that had been buried under the butcher's bloody knife for years was exposed in broad daylight. In the darkness of night, sea waves were making gentle sounds. The silence spread over the harbor was like the quiet before a scream. In a desolate corner of the harbor, large boats stood in rows. On them, wooden boxes and rustling sounds of small children wrapped in cloth could be heard. Some armed people were rapidly shifting goods and children into the boats. Ibrahim had signaled before raiding with his team. Everyone in black uniforms was moving forward in a crouched position like shadows. Ibrahim took out binoculars from behind an empty container and surveyed the boats standing ahead. An Israeli flag was fluttering on the roof of a large boat. This was their target. "Remember, no harm should come to the children," Ibrahim whispered into the radio. Suddenly, the sound of gunfire began echoing. piercing the atmosphere. When Ibrahim's team attacked from one side, the enemies also started retaliatory firing from the other. The rattling of bullets and children's screams turned into a painful scene. Some criminals started fleeing from the boats, while others used innocent children as shields. Ibrahim moved forward himself. In one swift move, he brought down an armed man and rescued a little girl from his grasp. "Don't be afraid, daughter. We've come to save you," he said gently. Another teammate broke the lock of a boat where 6 girls were chained. Fear was in their eyes, but Ibrahim's presence gave them hope. At that moment, a boat's engine started and began speeding into the depths of the sea. Ibrahim was firing, but that boat had disappeared into the darkness. He watched helplessly as it vanished. Some boats escaped, but many children had been saved. With the sound of sirens, local police and intelligence teams also arrived. Camera, flashes, media commotion, but Ibrahim's face was silent. Our war isn't finished yet. The real conspiracy is still remaining, he thought to himself. In the darkness of night, silence spread over the old mansion built on the seashore. Only the sound of waves and occasional strong wind whistles could be heard. Ibrahim's team was lying in wait with full preparation at this secret hideout. Intelligence reports had confirmed this was where the main Israeli network agent was hiding. "Target is nearby. Everyone stay alert," Ibrahim said over the wireless. His eyes were fixed from behind the bushes on the mansion's door where a shadow had entered. Suddenly, a slight clicking sound came as if someone had opened a lock. The door opened with a creaking sound. 3 people came out, a tall man wearing a heavy jacket, followed by 2 guards, both carrying modern weapons. With Ibrahim's voice, bullets started flying. The team moved forward swiftly. The guards launched a counterattack, but couldn't withstand the professional preparation. One guard fell there, the other fled wounded, but was caught. The main agent was surrounded and brought down. His face showed neither fear nor remorse. He was handcuffed and immediately taken to a secure location. In the room, one light was burning. On one side was a steel table, on the other, an iron chair. Ibrahim sat before him and said, "We know who you are and what you were doing. Better to tell us yourself or don't waste time." The agent remained silent, but when shown the video of children being rescued at the harbor, his eyes became completely red. His cold gaze began looking at the ground, and after a few moments of silence, he spoke. "However many you save, they'll be insufficient. The real plan was to take them to sea and finish them so no evidence would remain. When their physical use ends, they're considered a burden." Ibrahim's fists clenched tightly. A silence had fallen over the room. The agent's voice held no regret, but rather a coldness that had swallowed many innocent screams. "Now no children will remain." These words of his shook everyone present in the room. Ibrahim said slowly, "Now they will remain to testify to your fate." In the darkness of the next night, the sea was silent and deep, like an ancient king hiding secrets in his chest. The thick layer of clouds in the sky had completely swallowed the moon. In the darkness, only a faint green light from the naval intelligence ship was trembling on the water's surface, where Ibrahim Tarore stood with his usual silence. Beside him, the same sugarcane juice vendor who had proven to be the most extraordinary ordinary informant. "Ship's signal was received at 11:30. Now it's approaching our maritime borders," the naval officer said, removing his headphones. Ibrahim held binoculars to his eyes and saw a blurry shadow on the sea's horizon. "This is it. There might be children inside and those documents too. The enemy has registered their ship as a fish trading vessel, but thermal readings show different machinery inside." A naval technician pointed to the screen. "We'll move slowly, lights off, sound off. If they see us, they'll throw the children into the sea," Ibrahim instructed. Everyone aboard was holding their breath. In the sea's silence, only the engine's gentle whisper could be heard. The juice vendor came close to Ibrahim's ear and whispered, I've heard they give children sleeping medicine and lock them in a tank. They think the children are sleeping, but in reality they're preparing them for death. Ibrahim's fist clenched tighter. We have to board from the ship's rear. Their weapon system is weaker there. The ship was now only 500 meters from the enemy cargo ship. Ibrahim signaled, and the boat turned slightly left to approach from the side. Naval soldiers threw hook guns with wires that silently struck the cargo ship's wall. 3 commandos climbed first, then Ibrahim, and finally the same juice vendor who took out a small drone from his pocket. This will give us live footage of inside. The drone flew quietly and entered through the ventilation route. The scene that emerged on the screen stopped everyone's breathing. Small containers, each with a child, eyes closed, slow breathing, and screaming voices in Arabic and Hebrew from behind. Not even a flicker came to Ibrahim's eyes for a moment. We have to sink this ship tonight, but after getting the children out. And remember, not even one child should be harmed. If even one gets hurt, I'll never forgive myself. We've lost as many children as we were going to lose. Now, no mother's son or daughter will leave this world at the hands of these beasts. And if it happens, it will only be by God's will, not by their poison. Within moments, after surveying the entire area, he sent 2 soldiers to the other side, so they could gain control from every aspect. Ibrahim now began climbing the ship's rear section with the juice vendor using ropes. Only a few guards were on the enemy boat, who could never imagine that death was hovering over their heads. Within seconds, 4 enemy soldiers were rendered unconscious in a silent operation. Now every step had to be taken thoughtfully. Ibrahim moved toward the ship's inner door and called the rest of the team with hand signals. Inside was silence. Only faint sounds were coming from stairs leading to the basement. Everyone became completely alert. Now their lives mattered less than those children's lives who were their country's existence at this moment. The children are downstairs. Hurry, the juice vendor said quietly. He had sworn to support Ibrahim by risking his life. Let's go. Ibrahim nodded and ran downstairs with the team. There was a heavy iron door with a lock. Here, I have a master key. The juice vendor pulled out a key from his pocket. He had kept special keys hidden so they could fit any lock. This cleverness testified to his experience. As the door opened, there was a feeling of suffocation inside. This was a secret basement with iron walls and a floor covered in filth. Some guards sitting in a corner were talking when they saw the door open and raised their guns, but it was too late. Ibrahim brought down 2 guards with bullets in one swift move. The team captured the rest. In the basement were 17 children. Fear on their faces, tears in their eyes, their hands bound. Some weren't even conscious. Seeing Ibrahim fighting for them, their eyes filled up. It's time to give them poison. They were just about to arrive. A message had come on a guard's mobile, which Ibrahim read. If we had delayed even 5 minutes, these children wouldn't have been saved, the juice vendor said anxiously. Ibrahim immediately cut the children's ropes, gave them water to drink from bottles, and ordered everyone to be taken upstairs. Some children were trembling with fear, but Ibrahim's strong tone and kind eyes were giving them comfort. You're all safe. Now no one can touch you. As soon as the children reached the top, Ibrahim called the rescue team on the Navy radio. A faint light appeared in the sky of hope, salvation, and a new beginning. They had already taken the children to freedom's atmosphere by aircraft. 2 days later, it was discovered that some children were imprisoned around an old factory area. In the scorching afternoon heat, that entire area had been surrounded. Ibrahim and his team broke the enemy network and freed those children. There was silence everywhere, but this silence was the calm before the storm. Suddenly there was an explosion. The landmine alarm screamed. Ibrahim was startled. His hand went to the radio. Everyone be alert. The enemy has activated landmines. Think carefully before taking every step. At that moment, a child came running and screaming from one direction. He was looking for his mother. His innocence was unaware of this destruction. He had entered the minefield. "Stop! Don't go!" Ibrahim shouted. But it was too late. The child was now right in the middle of the mines. At that moment, the same sugarcane juice vendor, who had always stood quietly with Ibrahim on every front until now, immediately stepped forward. His feet were injured, his body drenched in sweat. But in his eyes was a flame of determination. "I'll get him out!" he shouted. Ibrahim's eyes opened with terror. "No, stop! Don't go there." But he was already gone. Barefoot, with a beating heart, he carefully placed each step. It would take seconds to reach the child, but each second weighed like centuries. He lifted the child in his arms. "Son, close your eyes. Nothing will happen. I'm here." As he turned back, a clicking sound came. Everything froze for a moment. Then there was a tremendous explosion. Smoke, fire, screams, all together tore through the silence. He had thrown the child safely outside, but was himself engulfed in the flames of gunpowder. Ibrahim ran like a madman, and when he reached him, he saw the juice vendor's dying body. Legs severed, face covered with dirt and blood, but a slight smile on his lips. "I saved him, didn't I?" he said softly. Tears began flowing from Ibrahim's eyes. He bent down and touched his forehead. "Yes, brother, you saved him. You saved everything." This was the last stage he had completed. The afternoon sun was at its intensity, but in Burkina Faso's capital Ouagadougou, a sea of people had gathered outside the government palace. People were waving flags with passion. Slogans were being chanted, "Long live Ibrahim, death to traitors." There was a wave on the streets, a call for justice. And in the middle of this crowd, on the stage, stood Ibrahim Tarore in his special black military uniform. In his eyes was that familiar sparkle. On his lips, quiet seriousness. Behind him, 10 enemy agents stood chained. The same agents who had conspired to sell the country's gold mines, murdered children, and tried to break the nation from within. Some faces were like merchants, some in the masks of officers, some journalists. Ibrahim took the microphone. "These are the faces that have traded your honor, your land, your race, and your dreams. Their hands are stained with your children's blood. Today they will face your justice here." Silence fell over the crowd. On the big LED screen behind the stage, videos of these agents' confessional statements were played. Every agent had confessed. "Their crimes. We took money from Israeli intelligence. We laid landmines. Yes, we targeted patriots like the juice vendor." When the video showed the scene where the juice vendor falls while saving a child in his injured state, sobs began echoing in the gathering. An old woman shouted, "This is our hero, and these in front are traitors." Ibrahim raised his hand. "We will give these agents the death penalty, but with your decision. Today, every person here is a judge." People shouted together, "Hanging, death to traitors." Military officers stepped forward. The agents were taken back. Now their trial was to be completed in just a few days under public pressure. This scene was being watched live on media channels. The world was seeing how the people of Burkina Faso protect their land and rights. After this day, Burkina Faso's courage touched new heights. Enemy conspiracies had failed and been exposed. Ibrahim Tarore once again emerged as a legend, a leader, who not only fights the enemy but also makes his people realize their strength. The first ray of morning was descending to earth. The sky was pink and red, as if nature itself was becoming witness to that great change that Ibrahim Tarore had brought. That same old juice vendor's stall had become somewhat worn by time's blows. A weak but peaceful person sat on the bench. The same juice vendor whose legs had now refused to walk, but in whose eyes that sparkle still lived which only a true patriot could have. Ibrahim Tarore came there in his military uniform, but this time there was no protocol, no guard. He quietly came and sat on that bench and looked at the juice vendor. Both their gazes met. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Ibrahim gently patted his shoulder and said quietly, "This revolution started with your 2 glasses of juice." A silent tear dropped from the juice vendor's eyes. He grasped Ibrahim's hand, as if expressing gratitude on behalf of the entire country. Both had a strange peace on their faces, as if some mission had been completed. In the distance, the sun was rising, and in that light, Burkina Faso's future was also shining. The revolution that began with 2 glasses of sugarcane juice had transformed an entire nation. Ibrahim Traore's leadership, combined with the courage of ordinary citizens like Mujib, the juice vendor, had demonstrated that true change comes not from the powerful alone, but from the collective will of the people. In the weeks that followed, the successful operations, Burkina Faso saw unprecedented changes. The human trafficking networks that had operated with impunity for years were dismantled. International cooperation increased as other African nations sought Ibrahim's guidance in combating similar threats in their own territories. The story of the juice vendor became legendary throughout West Africa. Schools taught children about the ordinary man who became a hero, showing that courage comes in many forms and that every citizen has a role to play in protecting their nation. Ibrahim established new institutions to protect vulnerable youth, creating legitimate pathways for education and employment that would prevent young people from falling prey to traffickers' false promises. The Future Bridges NGO and similar organizations were replaced by genuine programs that truly served the people's interests. The rescued children received comprehensive care, medical treatment, psychological support, and educational opportunities. Many went on to become advocates themselves, sharing their stories to warn others and working with authorities to identify and prevent trafficking operations. International observers noted the transformation in Burkina Faso's approach to national security. Rather than relying solely on military might, Ibrahim had demonstrated the power of community intelligence networks and citizen participation in protecting national interests. The sugarcane juice stall became a monument to ordinary heroism. Visitors from across Africa came to see the place where a simple vendor's observations had sparked a revolution that freed hundreds of children and exposed an international criminal network. As the sun set on another day in Ouagadougou, Ibrahim often reflected on the juice vendor's sacrifice. In a world where heroes were often depicted as superhuman figures, Mujib had shown that true heroism lay in the willingness of ordinary people to risk everything for others. The revolution continued, not with guns and violence, but with the steady determination of a people who had reclaimed their dignity and their future. And at the heart of it all was the memory of a man who sold sugarcane juice and saved a nation, 1 glass at a time. In the end, Ibrahim Traore's story became more than just a tale of political transformation. It became a testament to the power of human connection, the importance of vigilance in protecting the vulnerable, and the extraordinary impact that ordinary people can have when they choose to act with courage and conviction. The juice vendors. Legacy lived on in every child saved, every family reunited, and every young person who chose hope over despair. His sacrifice had not been in vain. It had become the foundation upon which a new Burkina Faso was built, 1 glass of justice at a time. The end.